Good afternoon. My name is Therese, and I'm going to be reading to you the next installment of our study on the book Dialogues with the Devil by Taylor Caldwell. This book is an incredible study of the psychology of evil and also the nature of good. We're having this study be around a discussion that took place between Archangel Michael and the fallen Archangel Lucifer. And these ones are writing letters to each other. Taylor Caldwell could read the Akashic records and, to whatever degree of accuracy, bring back the record that she could perceive, and I believe this record on this book is quite accurate. The tone of it and the content of it and the glyphs of it are very, very strong. As we have been looking at the past dialogues, there have been tremendous teachings revealed and understandings brought forth, and one of the understandings that I've been thinking about for a while here is the comment Lucifer made in the last dialogue about how the Father, God the Father, always knows the thoughts of his children, so how Lucifer does not always know the thoughts of his damned. And this is a very important understanding, because when we are one in God, we are truly connected in one, meaning there is really no division between ourselves and God the Father, our Father, Mother God, Alpha and Omega, and we are literally living in that sphere of oneness. And when we enter those spheres of hell that are basically governed by ego control, we have this fact that Lucifer cannot always control the thoughts of those whom he has subjugated. And we have to understand this even within our own dealings with other people, and look at what is the insane desire for ego control that men have over other men, and how that ego control usurped the original love of the oneness of the child of God, son and daughter of God, with the Father, Mother God, and how in the heaven world there is no forcing of anyone. It is simply through love. Everything is done through love and out of love and for love. And as we consider this love of the Father, we can really fall in love again with the Father, Father, Mother God, this extraordinary love that unites all of life in the heavenly planes. It's something to think about. You can think about your Father, your mighty I Am Presence, and say, God, I love you. I want to be in love with you again. I want to live in love with you, and then I want to love you in my fellow men. And that is really the open door which no man can shut, that leads us into the heavenly octaves. And so I just wanted to make those comments before we go into our next reading here. This is going to be the next dialogue where Lucifer is basically trying to convict man before Archangel Michael, and in many ways Archangel Michael does agree that there are many things in the human equation that are not correct, that are not of the light, and that are reproachable. The difference between the two is their motivation. Lucifer wants the annihilation of mankind, and Archangel Michael wants its redemption. And Archangel Michael actually also wants Lucifer's redemption. So, beginning with the words of Lucifer here. Greetings to my brother Michael, who is as opaque concerning secrets as one of Salome's most diaphanous veils. So it is true you see portents in heaven, artless Michael, incapable of dissimulation. I thank you humbly. This will give me an opportunity to prepare. Terra is now almost completely mad. The mediocre pride themselves on their intellects. Vile little minds speak of expanding man's consciousness. The clergy have betrayed the faithful. The dull tyrants sit on thrones. The wise and reasonable and sensible have been silenced. The callow young have been exalted. The haters of their fellows speak loudly of their love for their brothers. Freedom is almost extinguished everywhere. The fool is received as a prophet. The mentally illiterate crowd the fora of learning. Lawlessness in the name of liberty has banished law. Crime has succeeded against responsibility. The depraved and immature demand privileges which they have not earned, but which were earned by their superiors. Love is given, not to the worthy, who are the saviors of mankind, but to the unworthy. A man is reckoned great on terra in proportion to his folly. Men exult in raising rulers above them who are distinguished not for wisdom and prudence, but for their silly, quote, bold and imaginative ideas, which once even children on terra discarded on the occasion of puberty. Truth is despised in favor of lies. Facts are abolished in favor of dreams, all of them puerile. There is little virtue left on terra, and even that will soon be driven out. Men shout peace, but they are war makers in their tiny hearts. They, quote, march for freedom, but they are but troublemakers, overfed with food for which they did not plow, and with money and leisure sweated for by others. It is a hilarious spectacle. On other worlds, clothed in some fragment of majesty, I have had to contend with the minds of men, but on terra, excellent minds are singularly rare, and so despised. Therefore, I had only to simulate the glandular system of terra's men, and their little bestial instincts to cause their coming destruction. Once I had more labor on terra in the days of golden Greece, in the sobriety of the Republic of Rome, in the empires of the Egyptians, Chaldeans, Babylonians, Persians, Chinese, in the theocracies of Israel, and the founding of the Republic of America. In short, it was difficult for me in the presence of aristocratic and justly revered minds, in the presence of honor and intelligence. So what he's describing here is what has been called the slouching towards Gomorrah, and all of these aspects of our current culture, and the unraveling of the fabric of what made America good and strong, and what has made the world in past golden ages good and strong. It's interesting, again, that this book was written in 1967, because so much is so relevant for now, and as I'm reading this, we're in 2013, and I'm sure it will still be relevant in the years ahead, unfortunately, and at the same time helpful, so that we can bring in that New Jerusalem person by person. But mankind, as always, persists in breeding from its worst and basest, and in the worst and the base conceive of themselves as the best and most desirable. That is the very heart of the matter, especially on terra. I need not destroy her overtly. I can accomplish that through her lowborn, so that ultimate chaos will overwhelm that disastrous planet, and what civilization she boasts of will revert to barbarism. I can still induce her mad to bring the Holocaust on all men. You will discern I have several means of encompassing her death. It is surfeit of riches. I must consider which to choose. Then, despite portents, there will be no eye in the true sense to gaze on the Christ when he returns, and no ear, in the human sense, to hear his words. It is a race between us, but I shall win. I almost invariably succeed among men. Terror will be the easiest of all to destroy. I could do it today, but I am fascinated by the spectacle of these ape-like creatures who are now considering themselves gods, as you remarked yourself. I stand agape at idiots pronouncing solemnly on the glorious state of mankind. I am sometimes incredulously mute before the circus of grave imbeciles speaking of the, quote, marvelous destiny of man. Now it is true that men are gods in the sense that we have that seed of God potential within us, and that we are intended to be gods and to become gods and to be the fullness of gods, but not as the enthroning of the human personality and all of the vices of human nature as a godlike form, meaning everything we do is self-justified because we are, quote, gods. That's not so. There has to be, as Jesus said, the process of being born again, born in spirit. And it is that very process that Lucifer is trying to prevent at all costs. It's interesting also, he in this book is really trying to prepare himself to derail the plan of that second coming of Christ that was prophesied and foretold. That's what he's been having a lot of grief about. And the truth is that this prophecy of the second coming of Christ is one where it is intended to come through each and every one of us. Not so much as Jesus coming back in flesh and blood, but Jesus coming back in flesh and blood through us, in us. And so that creates a multiplication of the loaves and fishes that is something beyond anything that Lucifer had planned. And so just wanted to make that clear here. He says, the fault lies with many of the past superior minds on Terra. They did not outbreed the base-born and the vulgar and the stupid, though it was within their power. They were too gentle and too tolerant of the inferior. They refrained from reproducing, whereas the more apish reproduced in vast and multiplying hordes. They had no strong convictions, for they were dubious even of their own valid conclusions. Therefore they abdicated to the mindless obstinacy of those who could reach no conclusions at all, but the satisfaction of their animal instincts. And so it's interesting here how earlier in the book he is basically condemning all of the eugenics as being so evil, and here he is promoting eugenics as a way to establish what he would consider to be a better race. Now, of course, all of these ideas are spawned in hell and are hell-based, and so it's like he contradicts himself in a sense in his own objective, but not in his ongoing judgment and criticism. What was more admirable in man, his rationality, his impulse to worship, his contemplative philosophy, his reverence for art, his passion for the true and beautiful, his awe before creation, his respect for the sanctity of the individual soul, his obedience to the laws of virtue and right conduct, has been obliterated in the vehement passion of the hordes for material gratification. And of course, this is truth being used to enforce his lie and his agenda. For that, the best will not be held guiltless, I am certain, even by a compassionate God. In truth, I have a multitude of the just in my own domains who plead that their abdication of responsibility was in the name of, quote, tolerance, meaning that just men did not act and take a stand out of, quote, tolerance for that which was unjust. Innocent Michael, for all your words of hope and mercy there trembles, beneath them your fear that indeed Terra is lost. Your own indictment of humanity, though written in grief, could have been written by me. At least we face truth together. Absolute good or absolute evil, we see things as they are. We have no delusions. It is when men say to themselves, what is good, what is evil, that disaster impends. When Pontius Pilate thrust the Christ into the hands of the market rabble, and when did man not do that, and proclaimed that he had washed his hands of the matter, I sighed with ennui. I have heard the same claim through the endless centuries of Terra. Still it remains freshly heinous from your point of view, though not from mine, the blurring of good and evil so that they appear to be in a state of perpetual osmosis, seems to me one of my greatest successes on Terra. This whole cult of relativity where there's no more absolute good or absolute evil, and people don't really have to take a stand, and everyone can be tolerant of everyone else. And of course that is a plot spawned in hell, but so is the Gog and Magog of extremism and fanaticism. And so we see both of these playing out today in the world, and the only way out of this is the way that where we are bonding ourselves to Christ and receiving the impulses of the Christ mind. And that, of course, is what Lucifer would most oppose, and the force of darkness within and without most opposes. You are wrong in saying that pride is the great sin of Terra, for Terra has no pride now, only servility and the mentality of lick-spittle men. She was never truly proud, save for a very few instances in her contemptible history. For I gave men no pride, though some stole it from the angels of heaven. I gave instead malice. Now this is a very important teaching here, and we must really take it to heart, because there is so much truth in it, and it is for our edification and our ability to change it by the grace of God. The men of Terah embraced malice from the beginning, as we have seen in the case of Cain. Cain killed his brother Abel. Malice pervades the nature of men like a fungus, so that no part of them is clean of the infection. Man sometimes, though rarely, refrains from outright cruelty and barbarism. He never refrains from malice. Sometimes he honestly believes he loves his fellow man, but malice chuckles in his heart even then. Malice giggles before the appearance of justice and honor. It nestles in the breasts of even devoted husbands and wives, and in the breasts of children and parents. It is implicit in the multitudinous laws of every nation on Terra. It flutters like a veil between sworn friendships, however sincere. It lies down with lovers and rises with them. It whispers below the louder whisper of prayer. It regulates all the affairs of men, and is most evident on solemn faces set in expressions of righteousness. It resides in the judgments of judges. It is rampant between nations. The smallest child delights in it eagerly. When men say they seek justice and the rectifying of injustices, they are inspired by malice to wreak vengeance on their betters. It was malice which hammered the nails into the hands of the Christ. This is why teacher Mark Prophet said, "Trust no man, but you trust God in every man." So we are continually seeking to have that be our point of contact and reality, that God can work through each and every man, woman, and child. And at the same time, we don't trust the human, because we understand that each person is subject to psychology and to their own subconscious and to their own momentums and weaknesses. And it's an idolatry to trust in the human personality and the outer personality. And idolatry always leads to that flip side, which is iconoclasty, which is where the idol is convicted and torn down. And so the very ones who idolize also have that impulse to tear down the idol at a future point in time. And we have to understand that that's every one of us. Everyone we idolize, there is a certain level of malice within for that very same person that we idolize, and we must only have God as our God and not put other men and other things in front of God and create idols out of them. And this also includes our own elements of consciousness, all of the things that we prize and all of the things that we hold dear and all of the things that we don't want to necessarily get rid of within ourselves, those so-called cute sins and so forth. Malice has stamped its radiant light on the features of almost all men, for malice has a bright and hellish illumination of its own. It is the matrix of all the larger vices of envy and greed and slothfulness and poverty and indolence. It is the inflictor of all pain. It gleams joyously in the eyes of men when they hear of a, quote, beloved brother's misfortune. It shines vigorously before reports of pestilence and famine and oppression and despair. A man who has given sound advice that has been ignored, and then disaster has predictably appeared, does not say, "Alas, I grieve with him or with my people." He says instead triumphantly, "I told him or my people so. I am vindicated in my perceptive wisdom." This is also where we tend at the human level to choose to be right over to be love in action. And we have to really look at that within our psyche. What are the elements within our psyche that would prefer to be right as our parents wanted to be right, and as our parents taught us to be right as the world teaches us to be right, and the collective consciousness teaches us to be right, over being love in action. And oftentimes we have to forsake that sense of right for actually experiencing, giving and receiving love. And that is not always an easy thing to do, because we have been so programmed with this idea that being right in whatever way that is what's right. So look at it and ask yourself, where do I prefer to be right than loved? And where do I prefer to be right than being love in action? And when you are love and you are being love in action, you will truly be right, but most people then will not think you're right, because the things that love compels us to do tend to go against the grain of what either our childhood psychology or our collective psychology are telling us is right. Right means to be the right arm of our Christ self. Malice cannot endure superiority of station or of mentality or of godliness. It must drag it down to its own obscene level, and it demands at all times groveling. It can topple thrones or crush a humble, innocent heart. It is the betrayer of betrayers, for though it is never overt, but only covert, it resides in the souls of men from their conception. Before malice even, our Father is helpless. Who should fathom the depths of a malicious heart? I often think, can malice alone destroy Terra? My answer is yes. Above all other souls in my hells, the malicious predominate, for they are liars, blasphemers, abstainers, aggressors, laughers against the good, demolishers of the honorable, murderers in their souls, however harmless their acts on the faces of their former worlds. I have never wronged a man deliberately, millions of them declare to me. I never lifted a hand against my fellows. No, I reply to them, you did all things under the belief that you were justified. You resented the noble, and called them seclusive and of narrow mind. You envied your brother, and derided his successes. You bore false witness against a neighbor, and clouded his good name. You scandalized in your mouth to the hurt of those who loved you or trusted you. You imputed depravities to the virginal and the pure. You ascribed unspeakable objectives to acts manifestly good. You believed in no man's honorable intentions and in no man's selfless strivings. You depreciated charity and looked for a mean motive. Altruism to you did not exist. It was a concealment of evil. You killed no man and took from him no substance, except that you tried to dim his soul and pretended to scorn his accomplishments. Your wickedness lay in your tongue, if not in your acts. It is the subtlest wickedness of them all, for it cannot be called to account in the courts of men, unlike other crimes. The few good on Terra are not afraid of disease or cruelty, or oppression or misfortune. They stand valorously against all these, facing God, but before malice they are impotent, for it is like a noxious gas, which can steal within undetected and poison all who breathe it. It is victorious in the sealed house of the virtuous, who awake one morning to discover themselves overwhelmed. They slept after prayer, but on rising they find a demon in possession, their good name confounded, their reputations blasted, their honor impugned. The doors of their houses are open to all the malice of all men, and there is no refuge. Who can hide from the malicious man? His works are everywhere, his eyes clear and without mist, his ear sharp and keen, his tongue tireless. He believes himself good. Shall I say to all nations of Terra, unbridle your virile power, the world is yours? I ponder on that. It is a delicious thought. I contemplate the three contemporary giants of Terra, China, Russia, and America. Are they divided by ideology as they claim? Is their objective kind and true and just? Do they truly wish to invite mercy and peace and plenty to reside with all men? No. No more than other empires are they honorable, no more than others are they bent on peace and tranquility. They are inspired by malice, no matter their outward acts of compassion, to rule the world. There is none save God who is good, said the Christ. The malicious are the least good on Terra. Evil, unlike virtue, is divisible. Let us lead the world to everlasting peace, the plotters proclaim, but they wish to lead the world only to everlasting subjection to their ambitions. What we see here described is what has been coined by the Master Saint Germain, the international capitalist communist conspiracy. And we have to understand that those who are at the top of the pyramids of capitalism as the international bankers, and those who are in line and in league with them, and those who are at the top of the pyramids of communism, all have that same objective. And so even though it appears as though there are opposing camps, ultimately they're all working for the same team, which is the levels of hell in the astral plane. Now, this doesn't mean that there isn't good in the hearts of the people to whatever degree those people have light and are light bearers. And of course we know that America is a sponsored nation spiritually by the Master Saint Germain and by other ascended masters. America was a cosmic experiment in liberty and in bringing forth the highest form of government for this age, and this is why there was such a spiritual backing to the Constitution and to the origins of America and to the work of the Founding Fathers. And even though they went through all of these tribulations and trials, what they laid down was this blueprint for God government on earth. And this is why it is so opposed, and the opposition is rampant not only around the world to America and to the light of America, but in America itself. And it's interesting to see how communism is even active within America. You can do searches on the internet and find this out, that there is a Communist Party of America, and the takeover that is being suggested has really to do with it's a cultural takeover. And we certainly see that happening on so many levels. It's a weakening of the spine and the backbone of the people by basically eroding all of the moral values that made this nation strong in its inception, and making these values be simply not stylish anymore. So we have to look at this. We have to understand how the eroding is taking place, how this international capitalist communist conspiracy is happening, and at the same time we do see the uprising of light. We do see the awakening of souls. We do see this awakening take place across all borders and across all religions as light bearers are waking up, and waking up to their true soul mission and blueprint, and searching for the true path home to God. And we do see a surge in ecumenical consciousness. We do see a surge in a true search for good among the people of light on earth. And like Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. And so the voice of the Good Shepherd in every nation, in every religious movement, wherever there are those who are truly tethered to the earnestness and purity of God as love, and a love that isn't simply a justification for all kinds of moral depravities or heinous violence, crimes of violence against humanity in the name of some kind of fanatic cause. And so behind all of this, we do find an increase in light, and we do find this increase in darkness, and it is truly a race to the finish, and that finish being the anchoring of the consciousness of the New Jerusalem and the second coming of Christ. This is the monstrous little morsel of a world on which the Christ gave up his blameless life. For what and for whom? This is the obscure little world on which the prophets lived and whom they exhorted. Why? The law was given this vicious little earth, and it has been despised through the ages. For all of Moses, for all of the Lord, where malice is king, no other thing can flourish, no, not even the bright shadow of God. Only I can endure. Michael, my dear brother, I feel sorrow for you. Does it ever come to your mind that the lifting of your hand can blot out this shame of the universe, this terror? You must ponder on it, for it defames your galaxy. Each day it throbs senselessly in its orbit. My quarrel has never been with our Father, but with man. Had man not been created, I should, even now, have been rejoicing in the courts of heaven, though often bored by the dissertation of others, alas, even yourself. And so we can see here, again, Lucifer's vendetta and this idea I have nothing against the Father just after his creation. And we have to look at this self-justification again and look at where it might lurk within us too, where we might say, I love God, but I can't stand God and others. I love mankind, but I don't like people, and so forth. And so we have to look at this. We have to really look at this, because Mother Teresa said, and I don't have the exact quote here in front of me, but she was basically saying, people are rash and unpredictable and hateful, and they will betray you, and they will lie, and they will do all these things. And she keeps saying, love them anyway, love them anyway, love them anyway. On another occasion she said, despite all of our defects, God is in love with us. And that is such an important understanding, that in spite of all of our defects, God is in love with us. And through that love, when we truly allow that love to come in and transform us, we'll find that transformation never ending. And there comes a point in time at the moment of the soul's ascension in the light where the permanency in God has been earned and achieved, that God does, in the twinkling of an eye, transmute whatever is left of our weaknesses, all that is left of our imperfections. And so we can hope for that, just like it says in the book of Revelation, in the twinkling of an eye. Before we move on to the next part of the letter, I would like to say a prayer here for the binding now of malice within each heart. In the name of the light of God that never fails, I call to you, beloved Archangel Michael. I call to you, beloved Archangel Chamuel and Charity, and all of the archangels of love. I call to you, beloved Archangel Peace, the archangels of peace, Uriel and Aurora. I call now to the archangels of purity, Gabriel and Hope, to the archangels of healing, beloved Raphael and Mother Mary, to the archangels of illumination, Jophiel and Christine. I call now to the angels and archangels of transmutation, beloved Zachiel, Holy Amethyst. I call now for an absolute clearing now within our four lower bodies, and especially within the subconscious and unconscious mind, of the threads of malice. We ask now for all of that spite and malice that rejoices in iniquity, and that seeks to subtly tear down the progress of our brethren, now to be cast into the flame. We call now for a turning of worlds within our own microcosm, and then a turning of worlds within the outward macrocosm, that we might have a full and final victory over malice, that we might be able to truly become and enjoy the brotherhood that exists in heaven here on earth, and that all that opposes that brotherhood through malice within our psyche now be placed upon the altar, transmuted, and returned to us as a boon of love, light, justice, and faith in joy. According to God's holy will, let it be done. Amen. Let us speak of merrier things. Congratulate our Father in my name that he appears recently to have improved the human race and its potentialities on the new planet in the constellation of Orion called Limpia. Has he learned from his previous errors? I meditate on Limpia, a most delectable huge planet as full of color as a brilliant rainbow, its scarlet waters pellucid and calm, its mountains violet, its skies a delicate rose and gilt, its land as cerulean as the dawn. The new human race is delightful to contemplate, shapely and tall and lovely in its form, its skin of polished ebony touched with ardent curves and shadows, its eyes as yellow as gold coins, its hair long and black like spun glass, its mouths lifted with laughter and love and tenderness and joy, its touch delicate and sure and gifted, its minds of great superiority and wisdom and subtlety and invention. Among them Phidias and Socrates and Michelangelo would be considered slighter talents. Though they have not existed long, they have already raised a wondrous temple of shining silver to our Father, and have decorated it exquisitely. They have paved its floor with midnight marble, and its altar is heaped with artifacts so charming that I often pause in admiration. Again, as on all the worlds, a mystic cross appears above the altars, though few worlds understand what it is and why it is. They only know that it has profound significance. They have but 2 priests, for they number only 100 as of this day, but those priests speak in the accents of sanctity and truth and adoration. I observed you only yesterday, Michael, conversing with this tremendously improved race of men, and I saw your smile. Smile, Michael, while you have yet time. It will give me the greatest pleasure to destroy Limpia, or at least the greatest satisfaction. Even this lovely race is not immune from free will, and it is human. Therefore, therein is its crime, and I shall punish it. Our Father has said to the men of Limpia, "You are beauteous, for I have made you, and there is none fairer, no, not in all my worlds and my creation. Not even my angels are sweeter of countenance than you, for all you are only men. Your minds are like scintillating stars, and great achievements are possible for you, to the admiration of other worlds. I have withheld nothing from you, and have given you immortality and free will, the gift above all other gifts with which I have endowed all my children. This earth is your possession, and on it you will live like gods and angels, free of disease and death, of sorrow and pain. But you must rejoice in each other, and be proud of the accomplishments of your brothers, and exalt them in my name. You must delight in your beauty, for I gave it to you. You must delight in your perfection, for it came from my hand. Degrade these, and all misfortune and death and grief will be your portion." This is a very subtle prohibition given to the men of Limpia, which could never be understood on such meager worlds as Terra and many multitudes of others. In each man on Limpia the race is exultant, and the race is exultant in each man. There is no collectivism on Limpia, no trace of that corruption of mind which exists in Terra. There is only joyous brotherhood. But the more ingenious the race, the greater challenge to me, and strangely enough my triumph is surer among the more intelligent. There is nothing more satisfying than a worthy antagonist. I find my triumphs on Terra very tedious. They are so easy. The degradation and depreciation of beauty, that will be a hard task for the men of Limpia, for they are so beautiful. Beauty never truly existed on Terra. It is the ugliest and dullest of races. I will send my Lilith to the men of Limpia, she so snowy of skin, so golden of hair, so translucent of flesh, so blue of eye. She is my laughing girl, and what man can resist a woman full of perpetual merriment? I will send my Damon to the women of Limpia, he also so fair of complexion, with bright roses in his countenance, and with the deepest red in his hair, and with the dawn in his eyes. You believe that so intelligent and endowed a race will not consider mere bodily beauty, however esteemed, to be paramount over the gifts of the mind? Michael, Michael, I have yet to discover a human race which did not worship a countenance superior in form and color to others. On stupid Terra, even in Greece and Egypt, a prettier woman was idolized, however vile the soul, and a handsomer man was deified, though possessed of a spirit lower than a worm. As men cannot look into the souls of others, the outward appearance is of greatest importance. But I shall not speak the truth and say that to all men the external manifestation is the true one. The race of Limpia is not immune to that suggestion. Speech and writing, even the arts, are not full communication, nor are the whispers of lovers. Man by his human nature is forever isolated in his flesh. He can communicate only with words and gestures, with smiles and frowns. He himself is hidden from all others. Therefore he is not understood except by our Father, to whom he rarely has recourse, for the impulses of his natural heart are contorted and naturally perverse. What he's alluding to here is that on other planes of consciousness people are communicating, let's just say the beings of heaven are communicating through glyphs and through vibration, that they recognize each other through that vibration, that telepathy, those glyphs, and there are many other ways of knowing one another, and it's at a vibrational level and not just at a level of what is said and communicated through the five senses. My sweet Lilith will say to the women of Limpia, "Behold, you are beautiful and beloved of your husbands, but gaze upon my whiteness of flesh, my eyes of blue, my gilded hair. Do not men adore these things? Your husbands have already adored me, for I am distinctive and fairer than you. Your flesh is black, and your hair resembles the dark Memnite, and your eyes are yellow. Gather about me, sisters, and I will impart a secret to you, so that you will become as I." To the men of Limpia my Damon will say, "Look upon my fairness, the brilliant flush of my cheeks, the sunset glow of my hair. Your wives have found all these fascinating. Do you wish them to love you more and forsake me? Listen to me then, and I will give you the secret of my handsomeness, so that you can improve your race and make your children more desirable and hence happier than yourselves. Do you believe, Michael, that these are trivial arguments to the sons of men? Ah, innocent Michael, you do not understand my law of appearances. Before that law, the intellect goes down ignominiously, even among the intelligent. Men did not seduce gargoyles, nor are women beguiled by dwarfs. The mind is not superior to matter, no, not even on Olympia. Those who will admire Lilith the most will be men of greater sensibility, the artists, sculptors, and musicians, to whom beauty is irresistible, and the bearer of its divine. The women who will love Damon will be the ladies of broader imagination than their sisters, and all women love masculine muscles, though they prefer to call it understanding and sensitivity. What we see here as well is when we consider these two demons, Lilith and Damon, Lilith is actually the twin flame of Lucifer, and so she's actually a fallen archeai, even though in this book she is referred to as a demon. What we have to understand, like Jesus said, is by their fruits shall ye know them. That we may wonder, why would these fallen ones still have such an appearance of beauty and glamour and innocence? And again, as Jesus said, by their fruits shall ye know them. By their vibrations and the results of their actions. So, taught by my Lilith, the men of Limpia will become discontented with their wives and cast about them for a woman of lighter skin than their own. She will become the queen among them, the desired dream, the lovely one, while the darker sister will be considered grosser of soul and body. The women in their turn will desire a man who resembles Damon, and will look upon their husbands with distaste, seeking a man of paler countenance. Thus they will commit the sin of which they were warned, and which will lead to their destruction. It will be useful for you to say to the people of Limpia, as you have said, that God has no color, but is a spirit. By the time I have seduced them, they will no longer hear your voice, dear Michael. They will be enamored of what they believe surpasses themselves, and will murmur the virtuous sentiment of, quote, improving the race. For are they not men of intellect, seeking only the beautiful which is inherent in their nature? The search for beauty has damned more men than the search for power. Out of what is divine in man I will always cause his fall. I will contrive his hell from his very virtues. What he has not already experienced enchants him, if he is a creature of intelligence and imagination. I have thought of my demon, Triviality, for Limpia, but the inhabitants thereof would only despise him, whereas he is venerated on such as Terra. Triviality is only my name for him. You knew him as Magus, who could even in heaven reduce the profound to fragments, all of them insignificant, but all of them ponderous and solemn. He is now the absolute ruler of Terra. Everything becomes trivial, everything becomes relative. Convey my salutations to our Father. I find his humor as weighty as yours, your brother Lucifer. And so now we're going into Archangel Michael's response. And we have to see the level of patience and the level of earnestness that Archangel Michael continuously extends to Lucifer in the hope that he can save even this one. And we have to understand that just as Michael reaches out to Lucifer, so he reaches out to those fallen parts within our own nature and reaches out to save our soul, to extricate us from those fallen parts of our nature. And we can, as it has been said in the book Chila and the Path, place upon the altar of his love all of our acts of wanton selfishness, and he will basically trade them in for his brilliant blue faith and goodwill and connection to God. So it's certainly a trade worth doing, and we can do this every day. Call to Archangel Michael and have that exchange of energy take place, where we give him those aspects of our psychology that are up, those aspects of our weakness, those aspects of our tediousness, those aspects of our human frailties and faithlessness and selfishness, and then watch him reinvigorate us with faith and a new sense of purpose and a new sense of joy and connection in God. We can do this even with the simple fiat, Archangel Michael, help me, help me, help me. Archangel Michael, go before me. Archangel Michael, heal me from all faithlessness. Charge me with your faith. Greetings to my brother Lucifer, who, though he inveighs against our father's sense of humor, has never been able to make a single man anywhere laugh with joy. It's interesting. The laughing of mocking, the laughing of spitefulness, but not the true laughing of joy. The laughter of joy is so seldom now on earth. We need to find a way to restore that laughter of true joy that we still find within the children. Just today I was making some pancakes for my children, and there was a pot of jelly that was stuck. You know how sometimes these new pots, you can't open them, they're sealed too tight, and so I knew that if you hit the bottom of the pot of jelly, that it's more likely to open. So I tried to open it, and my 4-year-old was waiting for the jelly for his pancake, and I said, oh, okay. I said to the pot of jelly, you're really misbehaving here, and we're going to give you a spank, see if you'll open up. So I turned the pot of jelly over and started hitting the backside, and of course the jelly pot eventually opened, and my son thought that was so funny, and he just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I believe that was the laughter of joy. There was no spitefulness in it. It was simply joyful and funny. And so let us be as those little children who can still laugh with pure joy. Evil, it has been said, is far more subtle than virtue, but I doubt it. For one matter it lacks gaiety, and where there is no gaiety there cannot be true subtlety or variety or full jesting. In truth, as you have hinted yourself, there is a certain ponderousness and dullness in evil, as witness in your hells. It can never move lightly nor with grace, however beautiful the form it takes. It can be deadly, but never can it truly smile. We have forearmed the race of Limpia, and this you would have observed had you not been so busy with your plotting. I visited Limpia, as I will visit her until a second generation arises. I gathered the lovely black men and women about me, and I asked of them, tell me, my brothers and my sisters, of what color is my substance? They rose from their knees at my gesture and said, your countenance, Lord Michael, is the color of lightning. I pointed to a crimson rose near at hand and said, should I appear in that hue to you, what should you say? They considered, and then the one they have appointed as leader said to themselves, and answered me, Lord, we should say, he is the color of blood, and therefore his color, being his own, has its own authenticity and value. It is different from our color, but neither handsomer nor superior. It is his own, and we honor it, as we honor all differences. But I am the color of lightning, as you have said. It is the color of my spirit, and your spirits are also of that appearance. God made man on his many worlds of many different refractions of light, and they are a marvel to witness. Some are as golden as your eyes or your heavens, some are also as black as you, some are red, some have skins of a bluish cast or even a green. But the Spirit, as I have told you before, is like unto my appearance to you, and so it is with all men. I come, however, to warn you of a grave danger, which the dragon, as I have called him to you, is plotting for your ruin, your despair, and your agony of mind and soul and body. He will unto your wives send you one Lilith, his laughing girl. We have to understand this color of spirit as opposed to the color of flesh, because all racism comes from these differences in the colors of the flesh and the subsequent divide and conquer that happens over that. The masters of the heaven world, the ascended masters and angels, call themselves the Great White Brotherhood because of the whiteness of their inner spirit, the lightness of their inner spirit. And many times when people on earth hear the term Great White Brotherhood, they ask, is this a racist organization? Is this only for white people? And why do we not see more pictures of masters with darker skin? And of course, more artists have been in recent years conveying pictures of masters with darker skin, either looking African or African American in origin, or looking more Indian in origin. The truth is that on inner levels, it's about light and the different hues of the colors of light, and we know that the different races, even in the physical flesh, are intended to reflect the different hues of heaven. And just as there are 7 major rays, rainbow rays of God, the white, the yellow, the blue, the green, the pink, the purple, and the violet, so the races of men were intended to reflect those colors based on the soul origin of that particular group. And so we have to go back to that spiritual vibration, spiritual color and light, and not get caught up in all of the different racial questions and problems and discriminations that go on at every level, that are simply a divide and conquer, not only dividing and conquering us amongst each other, but dividing and conquering us from God. And so it's all right, no matter what race you are, to call the Masters the Great White Brotherhood, because that light of white, the white light, is the aura of the saints. It's the deathless solar body that each soul weaves, no matter what color of the skin, no matter what race or country of origin on this planet, or on other planets where the manifestation of the race is not even in the vibration that this earth is, and therefore we do not see them, and most often don't believe they exist, and yet they do, and they are evolving. As Elizabeth Clare Prophet used to say, worlds without end and evolutions without end. And so the women considered this. They laugh merrily and frequently, but now they appear puzzled. I said, "She is queen of all the laughing girls of all the worlds, and she is a serpent. Do not misunderstand me. I do not speak of a merry woman as you know merriment. I speak of a demon, the demon of all the female demons throughout the universe, and she is a demon of wine and roses, of reckless folly, of warm white embraces. She is never serious." The ladies gazed at me intently. "Life, though we laugh often, is very serious, Lord." "True," I said, "the keeping of your race and your world is of the utmost consequence and importance, but Lilith, the laughing girl, finds nothing of consequence or importance, nor do the women everywhere who resemble her. Her face is never still or grave, she is never in repose, nor does she say anything of intelligence, alas." And now I look to the young men. The latter men find very adorable in women. "Not we, Lord," they exclaimed. I shook my head. "You are men after all. Though you are still blameless, I am afraid that when your wives are too solemn you find it tedious. Is that not so?" Their wives looked at them sternly. One young husband then said, while staring down at his feet, "I love the woman God has given me, but she does not always laugh when I do." "True," I said, "but Lilith will laugh always. She is never sedate. She was never a matron. Even the women on the countless worlds who are like her are never truly matrons, however often they marry. They stretch their lips in perpetual smiles and show all their glowing teeth. Between their red lips they smile even when they sleep. It is a bad habit, but it is also dangerous. They are never disheveled, nor do they ever sweat, for they have taught men to labor for them. They are perfumed at all times, and their dress is the only matter of gravity to them. Ornament is of the greatest weight. They are never disturbed by the vagaries of nature or of any mishap. They find it all amusing. Their noses never run, nor at the least visibly. If they possess bowels and bladders, it is as if they do not. Never are they impatient with men. They croon and pacify, even when the masculine behavior is particularly imbecilic of the moment. Good nature at all times, even under arduous circumstances, and laughter always are their distinguishing features. You will understand that this can be very soothing." "What trivial creatures," said the ladies with scorn. Again they glanced at their husbands. "Our husbands are of marvelous intellect, and they would find such women boring." I thought to remark that even the wisest men often find folly delightful, and when it comes in the form of a delectable woman they discover it hard to resist. But the ladies' expressions when contemplating their husbands were thoughtful enough and appeared to unnerve the boys. I said, God has given you great wisdom so that you know things without experience of them. The histories of many of the worlds is the history of the laughing girls and the destruction they brought with them. Mighty thrones fell because of them. Empires died in their pale hands. Death followed like a lethal shadow behind their dancing steps. Had fools alone been their prey, it might not have been so terrifying, but the wisest men of all succumbed to the laughing girls, and abandoned honor, God, peace, and order to lay treasures at their pretty feet. Their secret and their charm is, as I have said, because they find nothing serious in existence and nothing to be reverenced. They are an abomination and belong to the dragon. A silly woman is not enticing, said one of the husbands. Ah, you have never encountered folly before. Occasional frivolity or even foolishness can be very disarming and even innocent at times. But constant folly apparently does not follow the usual course of monotony. It does not pall. On the contrary, I have seen emperors glory in the folly of their laughing girls and openly adore them, and turn from them only when they discover the girls in a temper or afflicted with some ill of the flesh. I must warn you that it is rare for a laughing girl to so display herself to a man, whereas wives, being truly human, lose their amiability occasionally or have to wipe their noses. Men, sad to say, prefer women who are not truly women. Do not such women possess souls? Asked one of the ladies in a voice I found a little deplorably sharp. Are they not aware of this? No, and again, that is part of their charm. They are wholly flesh, and their souls are like soft little rabbits, without contemplation or true thought, and possessing only greed. They adore themselves. If they worship, it is only themselves whom they worship. Astonishingly, men find this entrancing. Surely, they say in their hearts, a woman who holds herself above all things and above all other women holds herself thus because she possesses the truth. I'd like to share with you here something that Brian shared with me once, and it was a dream experience on the astral plane where he was actually accosted by Lilith, and she came to seduce him. This was a number of years ago, and so of course she was seemingly perfect of flesh and was very irresistible. And what happened was that when Brian touched her and basically touched her chest, there was no mammary glands, and so her breasts were basically like balloons. It was almost like one of those rubber dolls. There was no mammary glands. There was no motherhood or mothering within her. It was simply all plastic play. And when we consider, for example, all that is being pushed in our society as beauty, including breast implants and all of these things that people do in cosmetic surgery and all of these things, I just can't help but think to myself how much of that is actually inspired by the culture and being of Lilith on the astral plane. And we know this one has not yet gone through the second death, and so is still quite active in society and in what is considered beauty and desirability. And so there is a demarcation between the Divine Mother and the Great Whore, and every one of us, man and woman, and especially, of course, those who are in the role of women, need to really look at themselves and their consciousness, and we must always put it to the test over and over again. You know, are we moving into the vibration and the fullness of the Divine Mother in form, or are we moving in the direction of the Great Whore? And the description of that would be the basically balloon breasts without mammary glands. And so This is quite sharing, and I hope it doesn't make you too uncomfortable, but I thought it was important to bring it up here as an illustration and confirmation of what we are reading here. That she is indeed superior, said a lady. The husbands were curiously quiet and thinking. You have said it, dear sister, I replied. The laughing girls, sly and greedy and rapacious and desiring all things completely for themselves, teem with plots to satisfy their desires. Men are the satisfiers, the givers of gifts. Therefore their basest emotions must be aroused, and their naughtier instincts and their tendency to abandon. The laughing girls, for instance, convince men that they are kings, even if they only plough fields. However, these girls do not care for the man who labors and who thinks. He is usually not possessed of much worldly substance, so they pursue men of accomplishment and men of the energy which can gratify greed, or men of unusual handsomeness. The latter, however, is only for the hour of the night, unless the handsome man also possesses treasure. The younger ladies fixed their young husbands with hard eyes, measuring their beauty, and they became even more thoughtful. Then one said, How shall we know this Lilith? She will appear repulsive to you, but perhaps not to your husbands. Consider this blue lily, her eyes are of that hue. Consider your gilded sky, her hair resembles it, and this white anemone, her flesh appears so. Hark to that nightingale, as the evening shadows empurple themselves on your grain. Her voice is like that bird, thrilling with music, and of course with laughter. Our Father, foreseeing your arts, Lucifer, has given a measure of innocent vanity to the people of Limpia, so one of the ladies said, She, from your description, Lord, would appear repulsive to our men. And very strange, echoed some of the husbands. The strange woman lives in the house of death, and that house is in the habitation of hell, I said. But that has never driven men from her. On the contrary, they have considered her well worth the lives they lost, and the treasure, and their hope of heaven. The lads turned their heads and looked over their shining fields to the silver temple they had reared to our Father. They said with deep passion, No strange woman can lure us from him. So be it, I said, and I bowed my head for a moment. Nor would we find any woman unlike the glory of our wives captivating, said the boys, for who is like unto them in face or form, in countenance or in mind? We should spurn this Lilith. I hope, I answered. I then said, But the danger takes another form, and it is of a man. Now every lady regarded me earnestly. He is a devil, and his name is Damon, and his eyes are the color of the eyes of Lilith, and his flesh resembles hers also, and he has a mane of hair like the vivid sunset. There have been few women who have ever repulsed him. How peculiar he must appear, cried the women with fervency. How unlike our beloved husbands. True. I trust his color will repel you, my sisters, and that you will not consider it superior to your husbands. If Lilith is a laughing girl, Damon is a laughing boy. Life is serious, repeated one of the ladies. There is a time for mirth, it is true, and life would not be so pleasant without it. But a man who laughs constantly could be an occasion for impatience to a woman. True. Women are often wiser than men, but Damon has other arts. He has seen all the wisdom of all the worlds, and all the glories of the intellect, and all the beauty. He can describe them with such vividness that the mind is held enthralled, as if under a spell. He is the father of all the storytellers who have ever lived, all the tales of delight and wonder. Women love storytellers. Our wives are busy with the work God has given into their hands, said one of the husbands in a rebuking voice, directed not at me, but at his wife. Still, they love a man who talks well, I said. I think that it is an art which all husbands should cultivate. If he is colored as you have described him, Lord, said one of the wives, we should find him not pleasing, but unlike our husbands. And are not our husbands the most splendid in appearance? The lad's face shone with gratification. Consider them so always, my sisters, I said, for when a race comes to believe it is more lovely than another, and that the other possesses more authority and innate value, then it has lost its soul. An honest pride is desirable. A prideless man or woman is less than the humblest animal. Cultivate your pride in what God has made you. Should you lose it, and gaze upon the form of Lilith and Damon, and say to yourselves, They are fairer than our wives and our husbands, and more interesting. Then surely you have invited death to be your companion, and will bring death to dwell forever on your world. God is good and holy beyond all imaginings, but when what he has created is despised by the creature and found of no value, then his wrath is immeasurable, for God has given distinctive worth to all races and unique qualities, and never must they be demeaned or others regarded with secret envy. Later in your existences and experiences you will meet men of other worlds and of stranger appearance and color. They too have the value of God in them, and it is their own though it is not yours. Love all that is created in the name of him who created it, and know that he does not love one creation above another. I'd like to make another prayer and call here for us. In the name of the light of God that never fails, we call once again to the 7 archangels and to beloved Mother Mary, Queen of Heaven, and to all of the divine mothers and their hosts and hostesses of the Lord to come forth now and to assist us now in the transmutation and the purification now of all vestiges of dislike against the brethren, manifesting through racism and through all other forms of superiority and inferiority complexes. We call now for the transmutation now of all of the hatred of those who at any and all levels do not share in our culture, our faith, our religion, our awareness and understanding. We call now for the transmutation of all mild dislike and even irritation, that we might be able to bring in truly the culture of brotherhood of the age of Aquarius that is held in the heart of our beloved Saint Germain and his beloved twin flame, Portia. According to God's holy will, let this call be answered now and forever. Amen. But will the races on other worlds consider us only unique, or will they believe us lesser than they are, asked one of the husbands. That is an excellent question, I said with approval. If you do not fall, you will meet only the men of other planets who have not fallen. Therefore, they will regard you with honest admiration and honor God in you. When we have not fallen, we can regard ourselves and others with honest admiration and honor God in them. This is the culture in the etheric cities and retreats. This is the culture of the New Jerusalem descending, honoring God and having honest admiration for God working through each and every one. But if you fall, then you will meet sinful men, and you will hate and despise each other and hold each other in contempt, and you will fall upon each other and kill. And this is what Jesus was describing when he said, if you want to take the stick out of your brother's eye, remove the log in your own. We are most offended by what others are displaying in their behavior that is within our own being, our own subconscious, our own unconscious. What irks us most in others is what we have not yet processed or dealt with or done away with within ourselves. And so we are offended by ourselves in the behavior of others, and we must remember that whenever we have that sense of offense, no matter who the person is or what the action is. If it's still in us, it's going to be offensive outside of us. When we can get rid of that fallen consciousness within us, then we are immune, and we can truly become helpful to helping others. And this is what Jesus also described when he said, the devil comes and finds nothing in me. We have to get to that place, and this takes time, and it takes psychological resolution, and it takes the invoking of the violet flame, the spiritual transmutation, and the prayer work, and the good works, and the charity, and all of those things that allow us to basically transform the darkness within into light once again. And so we come to that place where we can say, the devil comes and finds nothing in me. And that is truly the point where we are no longer irritated and offended by others, no matter what they are doing, and we can literally love them as a parent loves their children, even when they're naughty, and yet not have a place of haughtiness towards them, and understand that we too are as little children, and that we are all children of the Most High. And so we can work for that. It's a worthy goal. It's the only goal really worth working for. We have not seen death, said all of them in horror. Not yet. But when you look upon the faces of Lilith and Damon, you will see it. Fly from them, repudiate them, detest them, call to God to deliver you from them, and as you are sinless as you are his, he will come on the wings of lightning to save you. I believe, Lucifer, that you will find your task of seduction impossible, for the race of Limpia is proud that God has made them, as he has, and worship him for what he has done unto them. They will never, I pray, come to regard themselves as more humble than other races and less worthy of admiration, for they know themselves distinguished in a new invention of our fathers, and therefore to be regarded with pleasure by others for their beauty of body and mind and soul, and for the greater glory of God. Even if they encounter men of other worlds of superior mind or beauty, they will say to themselves, it is their own, and we honor it, but ours is our own also, and in the eyes of God of equal value and authority. If we must strive at all, it must be only to perfect ourselves within the limits of our strength and our spirits. That is the true humility and the true godliness. The race of Limpia knows that they have human limitations, but within those boundaries they will grow to their capacity, and it will be enough in their eyes and in the eyes of our Father, for true humility is the noblest of prides, for it accepts itself as ordained by God, for his own reasons and his own purposes. I'll read that again. True humility is the noblest of prides, for it accepts itself as ordained by God, for his own reasons and his own purposes. That which is good, that which is God in us, does not need to be defended in the sense of self-justification. True humility is when we accept ourselves as we are, ordained by God, for God's reasons and God's purposes. Archangel Michael continues, alas, what you have written of terror is true, and you and men conspired together to bring it about. Ah, Lucifer, you who so love beauty, to have taught a race of men to love only ugliness, you who are of such grandeur, to have helped reduce a race to such insignificance and so lacking in dignity, you have conferred authority only on the base, for the men of terror now seem incapable of recognizing baseness. Still a few remain who say with disgust, I shall not fall before him who rules me, for he possesses no merits of mind and soul, and even his flamboyance, if he has it at all, is bestial. I did not choose him, therefore I shall not honor him. I can only regret that my fellow man is cajoled to exalt the lowest and the most inferior, and to raise him above all others. I must strive to make my brothers see, if I die for it, for this world must not perish in mud and blood. It is my mother, and I am formed of her flesh, and I love her, and to free her from stupidity to the greatest task to which God had assigned me. And to free her from stupidity is the greatest task to which God has assigned me. I fear no man and no furious nation. I fear only the darkness which man has drawn over the face of God. I will pursue my way and listen only to my God, and perhaps the children of my children will know grace and freedom and love and worship again. If not, I have still done my best, and what will be regarded as merit in me before God. If not, I have still done my best, and that will be regarded as merit in me before God. In the darkness of the dreadful nights of terror of this day, these good and saintly men and women remember the prophecies of the prophets, and they remember the promises of the Christ. They know our Father does not lie. His word is the only truth begotten from all eternity. Some, I admit, have been beguiled by you to believe that the material betterment of their fellow men in secular ways is their task and deserves all their striving. They have forgotten that this world is passing, and that the Christ will make all things new, and that the world is not his kingdom as of yet. They are harried by human impatience for the good, but you have perverted that longing for the good as you use what is the best in the human soul to betray it and lead it aside. They cry for justice as they look upon the sufferings of the oppressed everywhere, but justice comes only from God, and if they seek it in the laws of men, they shall never find it. Their yearning for universal love and charity comes from the touching passion of their souls, their very instinctual passion, but never can it be accomplished by man's fiat and the exigency in the lustful hearts of politicians. That way leads only to greater slavery. Man puts his faith in mortal princes and rulers to his desperate peril. It is just that good men cry, and all men have a right to the bread of earth, and that intellectual light and earthly peace must not be denied them. But in striving for that bread, that uncertain light, and that precarious peace alone, they have lost the vision. Nothing is permanent on Terra, and tyrants use even benign laws to delude the people and corrupt them. The bread of today becomes the famine of tomorrow despite all the labor. The light becomes the darkness of cruelty, and the peace becomes war. That is the way of sinful men, of tainted men, of fallen men, even though their work is illusory, selfless and sacrificing. Only through the implored offices of God can they succeed, even in a little measure. Loving and anxious hands must not only give bread, but they must be lifted in prayer and in the knowledge that all secular things pass away on Terra, and no morrow is born of today, and no improvement in the temporal lot of man can be lasting until first the favor of God is sought and received, and in the full knowledge that your deathly spirit can only be lifted from the world through God's intervention, as it has been prophesied, and will come to pass on the day He knows alone. I look upon the murky chaos and confused terror and hatred of Terra, and the pain and the loss, and I know it is your work with the aid of men. But it will end, your brother, Michael. And as we consider all of these things that are before us even now, for example, even just the national debt of our nation, and all of these other things that are going on around the planet, we can truly say it is but by the grace of God that we go. And if we consider all of the nuclear arms races that took place back in the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s and so forth, and we did not blow up the planet, and we can say by the grace of God, still do we go. And we have to understand that it is those lights within the hearts of men who are yet true and righteous and earnest in their calling that sustains the entire planet and has helped us to keep on keeping on until we will truly see Earth having her final victory, for it has been decreed and we ratify it so, and it only takes a handful to make it so. By God's grace, according to God's holy will. Amen. So thank you once again for watching this release and teaching on the book Dialogues with the Devil, and we look forward to coming together again soon. God bless you.